How do fractional CMOs hit the ground running? Hi, I'm Dean Way. Welcome to Fractional CMOs and the 90-Day Win. There's a lot of variety in how they kick off a new client engagement. In fact, there's so much variety, it's valuable to just listen to what opportunities they look for, what they tackled first, and what they wish wasn't true when they started a new project. So let's find out. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Dean. How are you?
Good, thank you. Steve, okay, so imagine you just started a new year-long engagement. You're the fractional CMO. We'll talk about early wins in a moment. But first, what problems do you typically see? Or, if you're willing to talk about it, what problems do you normally look for on day one? And probably start off by telling the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a 20 plus year marketer. I started my career in copywriting, worked for agencies, consulted, and sort of worked my way through a number of different marketing functions. And about 5 years ago, I developed a performance marketing and creative development agency, and was sort of getting bored with the kind of basically the routine tasks of managing multiple marketing channels, and I wanted to kind of excel my own career. And so I stepped into the fractional CMO role. It was obviously very different coming in as a consultant and inheriting teams with various clients. The number one thing I think problem wise that I tend to see is not everyone is on the same page in terms of the big vision of what marketing is to do within that organization.
Right.
It oftentimes is, it could be someone such as head of marketing or head of growth that kind of has a different view of how the brand should develop their marketing strategy. The other problems I tend to see are just not a lot of great process and just operational documentation in place. And so the first day, I'm just looking to sort of be the curious one in the room, absorb as much information as I can, and try to understand the dynamics. How do they operate? How do they prefer to oversee marketing, and kind of where they're looking to go, and if it's realistic, but also if the dream is big enough for that particular brand.
And Katie, what's like one thing you're always sort of on the lookout for when you start a new engagement? Oh, and hello. And please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Dean. Hi, Steve. I'm Katie Smith, and I work with Wild Path Consulting. I'm a fractional CMO. I mostly work with post-startups, so people who have plateaued a little bit. They've got all of their organization. They know what's happening in marketing is this kind of chaotic afterthought. They want to go for the next goal. They want to start a new project. What they've done before is not going to get them there. And so I come in to help them. I live in Montana, and I'm close enough to Yellowstone National Park that I can drive there about the time it takes me to finish a large chai. So when I approach an organization, so day one, it's really important for me to let them know and to see how they view their customer. To me, customers, they hold all the answer to our questions. So like Steve, it's a lot of listening, but I really want to get in there and understand the structure of the organization and who's in that structure. For me, marketing is kind of an all organization encompassing thing. I want us all working together on that same goal, and I want to know who's involved in that. So I get to know people. I do a lot of listening, just like sounds like Steve does, to kind of understand what's actually happening in this. Where are our areas of contention? What are the first things that we're going to need to tackle? And I really love how Steve talked about the dream, right? Is that dream that they're going for big enough? Is it aligned? And then how can I come in and map out that plan that's going to get us to the big dream that they're going for?
Okay, so let's stick with that for a second then. So going after like the big goals and the big dreams, like what kind of, those are all longer term stuff. What kind of early wins or low hanging fruit, Katie, do you like to go for in the first 90 days or so?
So I love mess, right? Usually when I come into these organizations, it's chaos. Excuse me. The marketing is all reactionary,
Yeah.
not a lot of structure, and often it's not aligned with the major goals. It's brought in sort of at the end of these projects and they want things done yesterday. Super stressful for everybody. So those first wins that I can come in is start to create a structure and start to create a little bit of a plan for how we're going to deal with marketing. What are our priorities first? How do we communicate? So a lot of those big wins that people don't really realize are huge are creating the communication, creating a bit more structure, letting everybody breathe a little bit. Those are the first day one goals that I'm looking for, and that's what's going to set us up for the success later on.
And Steve, how about you? What early wins or low hanging fruit do you like to sort of put on the board in the first 90 days?
Yeah, I like to see what the core message is and try to find inefficiencies in between the customer's journey and the path to conversion. So if I'm stepping in, I'm sort of assessing really quickly what are the main marketing channels, what are those looking like in terms of traffic, and then I'm essentially trying to find either where we're bleeding money or where there's some sort of disconnect between what the customer is seeking and what we're offering in terms of messaging.
Okay, so you just talked about bleeding money. Uh, what besides that? Like what's one more thing that clients normally don't
Mm-hmm.
see or know about until you start working with them?
Typically, it's problems with the website.
Yeah.
It could be that some of the analytics are off. It could be that the attribution's off. Sometimes I tend to see budgets misallocated for that particular industry or for that particular type of brand. It's all over the place. It depends on really who's running it. It could be an agency that is running with sort of goals that are just not as efficient as they need to be with the dollars, and they've kind of put a veil on performance in such a way that the client either doesn't understand what's actually happening or the expectations between what they should be delivering and what the client's initial expectations were set to be are off. Like, I mean, just put simply, like you'll step in and there'll be an agency, a performance marketing agency that is touting that like 2x on Meta is amazing. Like, for instance, if we're talking about like an e-commerce client or consumer tech or something like that, or that the cost per leads that they're reporting on are somewhat efficient, and in reality they're not when you look at industry benchmarks. So the just the view of the world is completely off, and there's not some like foundational things in place, like for instance just benchmarking yourself against the industry
Right.
of competitors.
Katie, what do your clients normally not see or know about or understand until you
Yeah.
start working with them and poking at stuff and shining a light on some stuff?
So, gosh, I can't even tell you how common, what Steve's talking about is. I think
Yeah.
I've got 2 or 3 agencies that I will work with and bring in, because it's true. A lot of people don't have a good handle of their marketing. They're afraid to look at it because they don't really understand how it works. They think it's like this magic thing. They hear all the data points and they're just, I don't get that or understand it. So what I try to do is make sure that people understand how all the stats, everything that we're talking about, actually fits into their long-term goals of the organization. That's key, because we can do any kind of marketing. Tactics are tactics. You
Yeah.
can make any, you can throw in any tactic there, and I find that that's where people are focusing, but they don't understand that tactics need a strategy. They need a plan. We need to understand why we're doing this. is this really the best way for us to reach this goal that you have? So that's what I really try and do. A lot of times I find myself a bit of an interpreter, especially if we're working with an outside agency. People in the agency, they have their terms, they have their language,
Yeah,
the
they have
way
their
that they
industry
talk.
jargon. Yeah.
Yeah, and the organization has their own. And often, sometimes the agency is not even trying to be, um, you know, trying to take advantage. They're just missing. So I spend a lot of time making sure that advocating, as a fractional CMO, and I think this is the difference between bringing in just an agency and an agency is outside. A fractional CMO is on your team. So we're
Right.
fighting for you, we're advocating for you, but we know all the language, so we can make sure that we're getting the most out of this program, whether we're working external with an agency, internal with our teams. It's really just I speak a lot of languages in the business world. And I think that's one of the biggest assets that a CMO can bring.
Well, then, a lot of people who listen to this are on a board or an executive leadership team or a CEO, they're a CEO, and they're actually they listen because this is a chance to listen to essentially some guy who's a host and two fractional CMOs, real ones, right, talking about what happens in the first 90 days and getting ready for it and stuff. And just let's go down this road for a second. What should a CEO understand, Katie, about fractional CMOs to get to extract the last penny of value out of one?
So yeah, right away, a fractional CMO should be seen as part of the team, as your team, not so much an outside person like an agency. So that means that you need to trust them and you need to give them access to all of your information. I always have an NDA signed with my clients so that we can build that trust, because I want to talk to the finance. I want to understand what is bringing in the most money, where are we missing, what opportunities do we have. That's a lot of trust. I want to know, and I want to know the trade secrets. I want to know what makes that organization so special and so different that we can work that into the rest of our plans, and that we can choose the right tactics. It's a lot of trust. The other thing is that the CEO, that's the person who sets the tone for the rest of the company. So if the CEO is welcoming, if the CEO is saying, listen, this is our fractional CMO, I trust them, they're part of our team, then that's going to help all the way down the line. As I come in, I want to understand how marketing flows throughout the company. Everybody touches marketing, whether you're customer service, your sales, even backline production. I want to know, how can my marketing team help you? And I want to know, what are the best things that you have that we can then package and put out there, and put into our tactics. And that really starts with the trust of the CEO.
Steve, what do you think? How do CEOs get maximum value from a fractional CMO?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think where they get the value, and I agree with a lot of what Katie just spoke to. I think where they truly get the value is hiring a fractional CMO that is gonna lead marketing in this way that, again, aligns with the vision. Someone who really cares about the mission of the company. If you're entering a company, let's face it, we're consultants. If you're entering a company and you don't genuinely care about what they're putting out in the world, then things are never going to click. So the job of the CEO is actually to find someone who cares just as much as they do, if not more, about the mission of the company. And that's what I see as sort of like that number one barrier to entry. And if you can find someone that cares deeply, then that's going to also trickle down to the team. That passion, that vision, staying up late, working at all hours, whatever it takes kind of mentality. And that's, again, all that passion is going to transfer over to everyone else. And then what's going to actually rise out of that is an understanding of whether certain people are in the right roles or not. Because again, as a leader, you're stepping in, your job is to motivate. Your job is also to assess whether people are in the right roles. And oftentimes, if people don't love what they do, if they don't align with the mission, then that marketing function is never going to actually be running on all cylinders. It's not going to. It's just not going to work. So that tends to be part of the role as well. Obviously, again, although we're consultants, to Katie's point, we have to feel like we're a part of the team. So, typically a fractional CMO might work with 2 to 3 clients at a time, and we're spending about 15 hours a week. It's really tricky. It's really tricky to kind of like, and do this remotely as well. Oftentimes we're doing it mostly remotely. And so again, you have to kind of really find a team and find an individual, from the CEO's perspective that cares deeply. That's what I think, at least. I think obviously skill sets need to match, track records need to,
industry experience,
all that stuff, deep domain expertise. You have to have all that. All those boxes have to be checked. But again, if they really don't care, and if they're really not going to be able to engage in the long term, then whatever you accomplish in the 90 days could be trivial, actually, because we know, like, the real growth happens long term. There's going to be so many barriers in the journey, and mostly they're coming significantly after that 90-day milestone.
Well, let's invert that then. What's a sign, maybe 2 signs, that a client really should not have hired a fractional CMO or wasn't ready for one?
Katie, you want to go first, or you want me to take that one?
I could jump in. Yeah. Sure. So there's 2 things that I look for, right? And just because you're not ready for a fractional CMO, there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to be ready for change. Especially, I work in I do a lot of shaking up of industries, and that can be challenging within an organization. I'm going to come in, like I said, what's got you here is not going to get you to the next level. So I'm going to come in as your CMO. I'm going to look at I know the industry. I've done my research. I've done my audits, and I'm going to make some suggestions for change. And an organization needs to be ready to follow those changes. And to trust. I think the other thing is your CMO is not your only marketing person. And I think that's really important. A CMO, just like Steve said, is the marketing leader. So they're leading the team. Some CMOs come with their own teams, and that is great if that's something that you're looking for. But it's not going to be one person who's going to come in and do all the marketing and solve everything and work on their own. For me, especially, it's a team effort. You're going to be needing to bring in maybe internal, maybe external. We're forming that relationship. We're building forward. But it also means that you need to be ready to spend money on that. You're probably going to need to be spending more money than what you are spending now. That needs to be part of the budget. That needs to be part of that financial conversation. And if you're not there, that's fine. I have a ton of suggestions. So if I talk to somebody who's not there yet, I always have a place where I can say, hey, this is your next best move. Right. And then when you're ready, let's talk.
Steve, what do you think? Red flags that they shouldn't even be looking for a fractional CMO, or they're just not ready for one yet? Maybe culturally they're not ready.
Right. Yeah, I just got off of a client call, or a potential client, a few days ago, and I knew initially the flags that I shouldn't necessarily proceed. One of which is again the vision is just not big enough. They're looking at maybe 1 or 2 channels, like paid acquisition, or it could be like making their email program more efficient. And
do you think there's a difference between a CMO and a marketing director?
Right, exactly. So there's just not like this big vision that a fractional CMO can align with, and that they can help bring to life. And exactly that they're looking for more of someone to kind of just manage the various channels and to get more efficiencies out of them, operational efficiencies, whatnot. But there's that's one kind of scenario. The other kind of scenario is the when you're hiring a fractional CMO or someone who's a marketing leader, they've done this. It's not their first rodeo, so they've worked with multiple clients, most likely in your industry. So there could be a misalignment on the vision. Like they have a different vision for the brand. The story maybe needs to be developed, but what the CEO is holding on to, and usually it's not the CEO, usually it's an entrepreneur founder that just doesn't want to kill the darlings. And like, I'm someone who comes from a creative background. So, as a marketer, I tend to lean very closely on the creative, very closely on the story. And if the story is just not evolving, to Katie's point, if things are not going to change, if they're not going to be disrupted, then there's no point in bringing a marketing leader into the mix.
Right.
You have a good handle, or you think you do, and so you just got to keep going on that journey. I also use, again, leaning on my writing background, I use the Heroes framework, but a modified version of it for basically the business journey or the entrepreneur's journey. And when the entrepreneur or the founder is bringing in the CMO, oftentimes it is kind of like a Yoda type of person coming in. And at that point in the journey, you're basically missing something. You're missing insights. That's why you're there. That's why you've hit the wall, or that's why the company has stagnated. And if you're not going to listen to the Yoda, then just don't bring them in, because there's no point. You're gonna have to evolve. You're gonna have to change. This person's going to change you. This person's going to arm you with various insights or assets to go to market with, and it's gonna be different. And so if you're not willing to kind of test, learn, iterate, then again, there's no point in bringing in that person.
Okay, Katie, we're almost out of time. I'm going to give you the last question. Here it is. It's a hypothetical. Okay, you've been in there for 6 months or so, and the CEO comes to you and say, "Hey, between you and me, the two of us are going to pick and then hire the new head of sales." What's a green flag and what's a red flag you're looking for in a new head of sales, if marketing has a chance to influence that decision?
I love this. So, right, marketing and sales are, this day and age, they're like two sides of a double helix. They're the twin flames. The customer journey is all over the place. It's like a pinball machine. And so sales and marketing have to be so in line. So I need a sales director who has some experience either working with marketing or has a marketing background. I need someone who's solutions oriented, agile, and open. Sorry, but days are gone. We can't have siloed marketing and sales fighting like this. We're going to fail. It's got to be a team effort. We need to see each other as equals. We need to see each other as part of a team.
All right. Steve, we got a half a minute left. You want to add anything? Or are you good on that one?
No, that was great, actually.
It's a good thing you're the guest and not me, because I'm contrarian enough. I would have said, I don't agree with any of that, even though it's all absolutely true. All right, then. Okay, Steve, how about this then? Let's wind it down. Your URL's on the screen, but how do people get in touch with you, and who should get in touch with you?
So my website is rankfile.co. It's a performance marketing and creative development firm. I have a small team that manages those functions. But again, I also do fractional CMO work. And we typically work with consumer brands and direct to consumer brands at the moment. That's what we've seen most success with.
Yeah, as soon as you said hero's journey, I figured consumer, because hero's journey is not a thing in B2B, my friend. I can talk for an hour on why it's not.
Much longer journey.
And Katie, how about you? It's on the screen. How should people get in touch with you, and who should be getting in touch with you?
Sure. So I'm Wild Path Consulting. So my website is followthewildpath.com. And it's, I am just a fractional CMO. I work with a lot of rebels in the B2B space. So we are kind of shifting things around and helping people get up to that next level.
All right. And that's, I think, all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for being here. It was great to have you. And if you're watching this, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.